So, you want to make your own ice bath on a budget? Well, this is the video for you. If you go to Google and you look up ice baths, you're going to come across these very expensive options. $950, $1,120, $1,070. The chillers alone can cost anywhere from $400 to a couple of $1,000s. So it's really up to you at this point to say, do I want to spend that? Or am I here watching this video of building an ice bath on a budget? I decided on the cheap option. I decided to purchase this one from Amazon.com. I got it for $80. It came rather quickly and was returned and refunded rather quickly. Once I received it, I did exactly what it told me to do. It is what it is, a giant plastic bucket or vinyl, some kind of poly material that holds water. But what it doesn't do is retain cold or heat. So basically, the first day I had this, I filled it up with ice packs and 6 gallons of frozen water. So it was to the point of being slushy water. Poured everything in there, jumped in the sauna for 30 minutes, came back out. The water was a balmy 81 degrees. So again, like I said, it doesn't retain heat. I knew that I was not going to be able to retain heat or constantly go and buy ice to fill this up every time I wanted to use it. So I immediately drained it, folded it back up, put it in the box, and sent it back to Amazon. Moving on. Okay, so what I want to look at now is your freezer. So I am 5'8", 5'9", weigh about 145 pounds on a bad day, probably closer to 135, 140. Point being, you need to have something big enough that you can get in. So 7 cubic feet is my minimum recommendation. This one I found on Amazon. Now I paid $168 for mine, but I've seen these range anywhere from $168 up to $220 from Amazon, Walmart, and eBay. You will need a waterproof or marine grade silicone sealer or sealant. Now I purchased this Gorilla brand shown here. You're also going to want to get the Inkbird ITC 308. There are many advantages to using this, which we're going to go over later. I chose this Wi-Fi version so that I can regulate and monitor temperature and the entire system basically from my phone. But for $15 yet less, you can buy the standard version. Not much to say here really, not yet. You'll see these used on almost every single DIY ice bath video that you'll watch. This one is no different. So if you take ice and you put it into a bucket and you put that bucket outside, it's going to get cloudy. It may change color, and that's a sign that microbes are growing in your water. So I've had a swimming pool for 12 years, give or take, and keeping that water clean and clear is very important to me and my family. So just because the water is cold, it doesn't mean that microbes will not grow, all right? That's a myth. So the easiest thing to do to clean your freezer or your ice bath would be to empty and refill it before and after use. Maybe you want to do this weekly, maybe you want to do it bi-weekly. Either way, that doesn't appeal to me. So what I'm going to do to keep it clean is these 3 things: circulation, filtration, and sanitization. These are very important, and all three of these requirements must be filled in order to keep your water clean and clear. So for circulation and filtration, I decided to purchase this pump. Now this kills 2 birds with 1 stone. This pump and filter, it's made for aquariums, but it's going to work great for our needs here, as it will circulate the water and filter 400 gallons per hour, meaning I would only need to run this for less than an hour or so before and or after using the ice bath. For sanitation, I went overkill here. If you know me, and I like things to be very clean. So for sanitation, you want to use ozone or a UVC light. You don't need both, but like I said before, I like things clean, and I'm hoping that an ounce of prevention here will save me in pounds of cure later. Whichever option you choose, just know that for the UV light, it must be UVC light, as this light will break down chemical bonds and scramble the structures of DNA and RNA to destroy microorganisms. This light even states not to expose your fish to it in the tank, directly anyway. So they're saying that you should hide the light inside of a filter or put a cover over it and just let the water run across it. And then they also state only use it 3 to 4 hours a day every 2 to 4 days. So we're going to run this every day probably. I'm also going with an ozone generator. This one I found on eBay, and you'll see that it generates 2,000. It says mgh. I assume that's milligrams, micrograms, or milligauss. I have no idea really. But these are there are some kitchen style ozone generators out there on Amazon. You want to stay away from those. They output about 500 to 600 mgh. And they're designed to add ozone to like an 8-ounce glass of water or to help you clean a bowl of fruit. The pumps are just not designed to push ozone into 20 inches of water. They perform so poorly in this application, in fact, that they placed this warning on their website. Alright, so we need to seal any seams. Now luckily with this one in particular, these edges are curved, and so I don't need to seal the corners, which is great, and that's in all 4 corners. Now where I do need to seal, where I'm going to seal here for you, you'll see like up down here, up along this seam, down along that seam, all along the step here, and then again we'll just circle the bottom. So I'm going to use the caulk that we had previously purchased, right? This is waterproof caulk and seal silicone. So this is what we need. Resistant to mold and mildew, and 30 minutes. This stuff is supposed to be ready. It'll cure in 24 hours, but we're going to go ahead and do it today, and then tomorrow we'll start everything else. All right, so let's go ahead and start sealing this up. Great, so now everything is caulked. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a glove and some soapy water and then run my finger across everything to kind of make sure that it's set in place really good, that it's cleaner looking than what it looks like right there. Soapy water is going to help it not stick to my finger. It'll also help it to not stick to areas that we don't want it. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so now I've done that, I feel pretty good about most of these. I do want to go back over some of these bottom ones again, just to make sure. I don't feel like I have adequate coverage on some of these, just feeling it with my finger. So let's go back over that again. Alright, I think that's done. I'm going to let it flash or whatever it says it's going to dry in 30 minutes. It says in 30 minutes that you can wet it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it the 24 hours that it requires for full cure. And then we'll go ahead and start cutting lines and things like that so that we can add in the electronics that we're going to put in. All right, so as you can see here, the lid is gone, and it's just sitting over there. It comes off really easy. It's just 4 screws, but I wanted to have access to this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a router and just cut a slit right here for all my cords, because when the lid is on, I don't want it to potentially cause some kind of a leak or where air can get through. So this is all plastic. So again, I'm going to take a router. I'll show you how to do that. But this is how I'm going to mount all of my equipment. So all the equipment, so such as this light, comes with suction cups. Suction cups don't work on this because it's not a completely flat, airtight surface. So I can't use it. So my plan is to use Velcro. So I'm going to take Velcro and put it in place. I'll put a silicone seal around the outer edge of the Velcro and then attach it to everything that I want to actually mount. So let's take a look at how we're going to mount things. So this is my UV light. We're going to take my filter, put that about right here as well. We'll put both of those cords together going through the same slit that I cut here at the top. And then we're going to mount our Inkbird about right here. And then we'll wrap this portion. So this is where you're going to plug the freezer in, right here where it says cooling. I'm going to just Velcro that to the back here and plug the freezer in from there. So the only thing missing is the ozone generator. So the ozone generator we're going to mount out here, again to the side. This will be where all my control basically. So the ozone generator will be mounted here. We'll put the tube that for the ozone that will go through. We'll mount. We'll put another channel. I'm sorry, right through here. Drop the hose down there, and then the ozone will be generating through there. So everything will be on this side because I'm sitting on this side. My knees are about right here, so I don't want any of that equipment on this side close to me. I'd rather it be out here where it's not in the way when I'm getting in and out of the ice bath. So that's everything at this point. So I'm going to take the router, my router, and go ahead and cut a couple of slits, and you guys will see that right here in a minute. Alright, so now you can see the channel is cut. Both of my wires are here and it's smooth across the top. Now you may choose to do some silicone sealant in there, and I may choose to do so as well, but that would have to be once everything is mounted and I feel comfortable with how everything is mounted. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put the lid on. We're going to put the lid on and make sure everything closes with no gaps. Alright, so we have the ice bath in place, and I just want to show you how I did my connections. So we'll start inside, and here you can see where I made my channel, and I just put a nice piece of duct tape over that. I didn't want to silicone it because I felt like that was so like semi-permanent, so I just put a piece of duct tape right across there. It's perfectly flat, and you can see when we close this, no gaps, everything is still airtight and sealed. Okay, so back inside you can see where I've mounted my Velcro there and here. I actually put some silicone around the edges of that Velcro as well, just as a, I mean, maybe, I don't know if it needed that or not. And then actually I plugged everything in, and you can actually see the condensation here. It's actually cold to the touch, right? So that's awesome. All right, so anyways, that's where those are going to get mounted. I did put a wire tie here to just condense and clean up the wiring, and then out here, oh, and then I'm going to show you this as well. This is your temp sensor. So this is going to come off of your Inkbird. This needs to be in the water at all times. So again, that just comes to this same channel here. Comes down. This is all connected to your Inkbird. I don't have it turned on right now because the alarm is going to go off. I actually set everything for this. I've already programmed it. So because it's so hot and there's no water in here, the alarm is going to continue to go off until it reaches the right temperature. So we're just going to wait on that. I'm not going to worry about that at this time. This is where you're going to plug in your freezer. So right here where it says cool or cooler or cooling, right? So plug that in there, and then I have everything else plugged into this power strip. This power strip allows me to turn everything off individually, so it leaves everything plugged in. Now these are my patio lights, but this would be for the Inkbird, and then I have my light. So this is my UV light, which I can turn on here, and then I can click through. Let's say we want that to run for 3 hours. I'm going to take a look into here. See, my light is on, and so we can turn that back off, and then this one would be the filter and the pump. So that's everything. Everything is plugged in. So the next thing we have to do is wait for the silicone to cure. We'll fill it with water, and we'll go from there. Alright, so as you can see, I've got everything lined up and mounted. I've done a much better job at trying to clean up my wiring here. So now it's time to fill it up. So let me show you the inside just real quick. show you how I've mounted my filter, pump, as well as the UV light, and then the temperature sensor is just going to hang out here. Now my ozone generator will not be here for another 2 days. So like I said, having two ways to I guess clarify your water or get rid of any microbes. I'm using the UV light as well as the ozone generator. You don't need both, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this for now. Once I have the ozone generator, I'll go ahead and show you how I mounted that. I'm not going to do a channel for that. What I think I'm going to do is just mount it to the outside of the ice bath, and then when I want to use it, I'll just drop the tube in that generates the ozone. So maybe I'll do it before I get in or after I get in, and then I don't have to close the lid. So we'll see how that goes, but I'll show you how that all works once I have that installed. So what we're going to do now, and we're fogging up here, let me wipe the lens, is fill it up with water. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so as you can see, the water is filling up. I'm not noticing any leaks. We're getting close to capacity because remember, I still have to be able to get in here without the water overflowing. So I'm going to give it another few minutes. Maybe I'll get the water to just be probably around here, so it's above the pump and the filter here. And that way when I get in, max, I don't want it to even touch the white, so I'd rather it be like right around this area when I fill it. I just want to avoid any overfill or water splashing out when I'm getting in. So that's my plan. So let's just let this continue to fill up. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the UV light, and maybe I'll go ahead and turn on the pump, because as you can see here, the water is at the level where the filters are in the water. This pump and filter system draws the water in from the bottom, and then it pushes it out here. So what you should see is just a fountain of water coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So let's turn that on. There's the UV light. And now let me go ahead and try the filter. That filter is pretty powerful for this. Actually way more powerful than I thought that it would be. It is moving the water quite generously. You can turn this down, so maybe I'll just turn it down a little bit so it's not pumping the water so quickly. And again, you can tell we're approaching the point of being like overly full, or to the point where I want it to be. So let's just leave it, and we'll check back in a little bit before I get in to actually test the water level. Alright, so the water is pretty full. Put my hand in here. The water is actually very warm. So I'm going to go ahead and get in and just make sure that the water level is not going to rise too high. All right, let's do this. I think it's a little too high. All right, so let's go ahead and get a bucket and start emptying some of the water. And again. All right. Good height. All right, I think that's going to do it. Because I can still lean forward here and dunk my head and not worry about the water being too much higher. Now I can drop it down a tiny bit more, which water is going to come out because it's on me every time I get out. So basically what I'll do is I will not fill it as regularly or as high. I know my level now, and I can move my pump down. Remember, and I'll show you now actually. So we can move the pump down a little bit. So as you can see, the pump is above the water, but the actual outlet is not. So we can lower this a little bit if we want. It's not a requirement at this time, like I said, because everything is under the water. So that's where we need it to be. So yeah, I think we're good at this point. Now we just got to cool it down. Okay, so I have everything running, and the water is at this point cooling down. You can see the pump is turned on. You can see the UV light is on as well. So we're going to go ahead and close the lid. But before we do that, let me just show you the side here. So you can see the Inkbird. It looks like it's flashing on the camera, but it's actually not. Right now it's telling you that the present value is 83.3 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had it set to 77, but we're going to reduce that now so we can get everything cooled down. Alright guys, so this is it. So here is the current temperature. Again, that's not flashing. Again, present value at the top is 40.2 degrees Fahrenheit. I have it set to 47 degrees Fahrenheit, but I actually added 4 bags of ice. I added like 60 pounds actually of ice just to prime the pump, I guess is what you call it. Just kind of prime the whole thing, because you can mess up your compressor. It can struggle when you first turn it on to try to get the temperature down to such a low degree using such warm water. I think it was 83 degrees to start. So just adding a couple bags of ice instantly brought the temperature down. Like I said, it's at 40 degrees, but the ice is already melted, right? So let's take a look inside. And you can see the ice is already melted. Everything's gone in there. So now it's just keeping everything cool. The pump is running. I did turn the pump down so you can actually see, kind of where we are as far as the flow of the water. And again, I'm not touching the water. I strongly urge you to not ever touch the water or get inside without making sure everything is unplugged. So you want to unplug this because this is the freezer. So unplug that. Make sure it's not plugged into electricity. And then typically you want to also just go ahead and turn off your power supply just to make sure there's no electricity running to this when you're touching that water. So that's it. All right, everything is complete. We have cold water. We have an ice bath. So I wanted to add one thing real quick. So again, I did get the Wi-Fi version. You can see the Wi-Fi the light is solid. And so let me show you my phone. So if we come over here and we take a look at my phone, you can see I have the app up, and you can see the temperature. So I can always monitor it. Now it says it's 40.2 degrees, which is exactly what it says over here. So we know that it's accurate. And you can see where I have it set to 47 degrees. Again, right down here, 47 degrees. And you can make all your changes in here if you want. So you can go to settings and then make all your changes. So this would be the programming part. So that's it. The app is really simple to use. It says it's heating, but we don't have anything plugged into the heating, so it's not going to heat. It's just going to not turn on the freezer. So right now the freezer isn't running. So if you look down here, the freezer is not running because it doesn't need to right now. It doesn't need to maintain heat or cold at this point. So it's just maintaining. It's like a giant cooler right now, a giant cooler full of melted ice. So once the temperature gets up to or above 47, that's when the freezer will kick back on thanks to the Inkbird. Alright, so we finally have our ozone disinfector installed, and basically I did the same thing that I did before. This is just installed with Velcro strips on the back, mounted here, and as you can see there's a tube that comes straight up here off the top. Now this is much larger than I originally thought it was going to be according to the pictures on eBay that you've even seen, but again, tube that connects here, and when we open this up, you'll see we're getting a lot of ozone coming through here now. So I can smell it. Wow, that's really powerful. I'm actually going to turn it off. So as you can see, it's connected directly to my filter and pump. This filter and pump include an oxygenation tube. So whenever you connect this piece on, this connects on top of that, just goes directly to it. And now that's going to push all the ozone water, all the ozone treated water through your system, and now you have really clean smelling water, really clean water, oxygenated water, and it's working exactly as I thought it would work. So here's my quick cost breakdown of what I paid for everything that you've seen so far. The freezer, the Inkbird system, remember I did go with the Wi-Fi system. So there's easy ways to save money here. You can purchase this freezer probably on Facebook Marketplace for between 50 and 150. So there you could save money. If you don't get the Wi-Fi version of the Inkbird, you can save some money there. And then also remember that my UVC light and ozone are overkill. You don't need both, you just need one or the other. So there you're looking at least a $30 savings if you just choose one of those two options. So that's the build. Everything is completely done and I'm right at $300. And as I've shown you, you can probably build this exact same thing for less than $200. So thank you for taking your time to watch the video. I know this one was pretty long. If you're interested in seeing me actually do a plunge, I'll link that in the description below. Also in the description below, you'll see all the links to all the items used for this build. Thank you again for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below.